Welcome to Straightway Through with Gina, the podcast where we say it straight, say it true, say it kind to the best of our ability every time. I'm your host, Gina, and today's episode is going to be a light, fun, non human one. Now, we always talk about communication, and communication is the essence of this podcast. But I have a animal communication to talk about today. It's not so much direct communication from animals as much as it is interacting with animals, and in particular, birds. I feel like there has been some interesting insights I've had recently when it comes to birds. Now, this podcast, sometimes it's interesting. My initial goal in starting out with this podcast was to do 100 episodes. And this happens to be the 23rd episode, which means I'm almost 25% of the way through that 100. Now, the goal is not just to get through that 100, but it's to see what develops over the course of 100 episodes. I'm going to evaluate on the 100th episode. Do I want to continue? Do I not want to continue? What's the real essence of this podcast? Is it what aspect of communication? Is it really all aspects of communication? Does it include things like Bible verses? When I started, maybe it was the first 7 episodes, I started out with a prayer in the beginning, and then I decided to stop the prayer, and I actually did an episode on that called When Something Good Becomes a Barrier. You could check that out if you're interested in understanding why I stopped the prayer in the beginning, at least for a duration. I don't know if I'll return to it. And isn't it funny that I stopped saying the prayer, maybe, I'm guessing it was around episode 8, and today is episode 23. I heard a comment from someone recently that she watched an older episode and she said, "I love the prayer in the beginning." So it's just one of those things where you could go either way, and some people will like Avenue A, some people will like Avenue B. You can never please anybody, and that's certainly not my goal. But my goal is to find the rhythm, the essence, the space, the place where this podcast lives. So today I'm going to do something slightly different than anything I've done in the past, in that I'm going to speak very specifically about something that's relevant in my life lately, which is a story or a tale, a communication, at least in my own mind, with birds, and how I think. I mean, I won't say that for sure it's a communication from God, but I do oftentimes, when things like this happen, feel like it is God communicating with me. And whether that's true or not, who knows? But I'm also going to share a Bible verse that this whole bird situation has me thinking of. And I think it will tie in really nicely with the communication oriented podcast. Okay, so let me start by sharing with you that I love birds. And I've always really enjoyed nature. Even when I was very young, I remember playing outside. Not so much that I remember specifically loving birds, but I loved playing in the mud. I loved being outside. I loved being near the trees. I loved climbing trees. I loved being by rivers. And I always felt very much myself in nature. And I think that's the key. I actually had a huge insight a couple of weeks ago about why I probably feel so myself in nature. Uh, and it was interesting. It's always interesting that no matter what age you are, if you look, if you reflect, you'll have insight after insight. And I mean, and it was a pretty profound insight. So the point here is that I've always felt very comfortable in nature. And I would say my real love for birds probably started, it took off. I don't want to say it started because I loved them before my ornithology class, but it really took off. It took hold when I took that ornithology class. I was in graduate school. I did an environmental studies, environmental science, environmental education master's program. And in that program, I think there were 2 electives I had to choose. And one of them was ornithology, which is the study of birds. It was a very scientific class. It was a lot of bird biology. It was a lot of bird behavior. And there was a lot of field trips out to identify birds. Of course, we had to know their Latin names and identify them in flight and identify them at quite a distance and identify them by sound. It was great, great, great fun. I really enjoyed my teacher, the professor. He was a lifelong bird lover, and he was really, really smart, and he knew a lot about them. And we even captured them, nicely, humanely, and tagged them and did studies and things like that. But it was just so cute to even hold those little birds in your hand. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but they're very, very light. They're so light and they're so cute. And I've also held a bird another time because it crashed into a window and was unable to fly. And I was working at a facility at that time. That's the window that it crashed into. And so I held it in my hand while I worked during the day, and I just kept saying to it, "When you're ready to fly, we're going to go outside and you're going to fly, but take your time." And I went out a couple of times and held it up, didn't fly, went back in, went back out, and I think it was the second. I don't know if it was the second or the third time, but it flew away. And I was so happy to see that. It was a little nuthatch, and I do have a little picture of me in that nuthatch, which I look at fondly every now and then. Okay, so that when I took that ornithology class, that was quite a while back. It was in maybe 2005, around that time. And my love for birds has been pretty constant ever since. And I love taking pictures of them. I recently just got a feeder, a bird feeder. I can't even believe that I didn't have that idea sooner, but this is what ties into the communication that I feel like I have received, not from the birds, but I feel like from God. And it's special the way it all happened. Okay, so I don't know exactly the moment that it came into my mind that I wanted to get a feeder, but I have I'm always out taking pictures of the birds, and I'm always noticing how cold it is in the winter and how there seems to be so little food for them, especially when there's snow everywhere and there's no insects around, and it seems like all the seeds are gone. Now, I spend a lot of time out there when I'm taking pictures, and it is surprising to see how many berries there still are. Like, you would think they were all gone. But I still see woodpeckers eating berries off of little branches and oh, yeah, these cute little woodpeckers I've saw recently. I mean, you wouldn't even notice that they were berries. Like, I don't even think they were red. I almost think they were gray. I'm not sure what kind of berries they were, but I wouldn't have even seen those berries if I didn't notice the woodpecker on that branch and then see those little tiny, tiny berries that it was eating. And I guess it's just being out with them in the winter in the cold while I'm in my coat and my hat, my gloves, my mittens, and I can go back inside in an hour. And I look at their little legs and I'm like, there's no feathers on them. Like, how do they do it? And of course, I know they're made differently. So it's not like they're humans out in the cold. They're made differently. They're made to withstand, at least the ones that stay here for the winter. But still, it's gotta be tough to not have food or a lot of food, right? They don't have an abundance of food, that's for sure this time of year, and to be out in the cold. And I know that they must feel it because I go to places and spaces where I see, like, their little hiding spots in the brush. They're all tucked away underneath the leaves, the branches of bushes and things like that. So they do huddle together in those places and keep themselves from the wind and the elements. So anyway, I had this idea like, yeah, I've got to get a feeder. And it's just interesting to me that in 50 years, because I am 50, that I haven't had that idea before. I've known feeders existed, and I guess I just, for whatever reason, didn't think of it. And that's part of why I think that God sometimes speaks to us about things like this. And I think it was God that put the idea in my mind to get a feeder for the birds. And I'll see if I can articulate why I think that is so as I share a little bit. So, first, let me read this verse to you. This is the verse that I think of often when I think of birds. This is in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, and it's chapter 6, and it's verse 26. It says, Look, I'm reading the English Standard Version. Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? This verse is sure it's speaking about birds, but it's more so speaking about you and me and how much we worry about being provided for. We save things up, we store things in the pantry, we accumulate all of these skills and this knowledge to help us get through tomorrow. So we really take on this idea that we have to practice our skills and store up our food and save things for a day when we might not have as much. And that really goes against what God's message is for us, which is to trust that we'll be provided for. Trust that when tomorrow comes, we'll be taken care of. And I know that there's a balance. Okay, so obviously, if we're going to talk realistically, I do have food in the refrigerator for tomorrow. It doesn't mean I have to. I mean, it's convenient to, right? Because then I don't have to go to the store tomorrow. If I go to the store today and I buy enough food for today and tomorrow, then I don't have to go back to the store tomorrow. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if we get into the mind space that says I need this and I need that and I have to store this and I have to be prepared for that, and what if there's a power outage, and like the survival mentality. What if? And we can never really be prepared for what if, because we don't know exactly what direction the what if is going to go in. Like, for example, let's just say we decide that we're going to store up 3 months of food, because what if we can't get food for 3 months? There's a lot of directions that you could run that scenario out where it could be potentially a disadvantage to have 3 months of food. Like, what if you have 3 months of food and your neighbors have no food? Are you gonna really sit in your house and eat while your neighbors are starving? Are they going to know you have food? I mean, if it were really that bad, okay, like, we're talking if it really got that bad. Are they going to know you have food and not try to get it? So, and that's just one potential disadvantage. It also could be a disadvantage because maybe you're supposed to, like, move, like, get on your feet, go somewhere, do something, and if you have all of this stuff stored up in your house, there may be that attachment, like, "Oh, I can't leave. All my stuff is here. Like, all my survival is here. My food is here. The things that are going to sustain me are here." But what if it's dangerous to be where you are? What if you really had to leave your house and leave that stuff behind? It would be harder to leave if you had stored up all these things because you think you need them. So this idea of storing up, while again, I really do want to say that there is a balance, and I'm not making the case that you don't have food in your refrigerator for tomorrow, or that you don't take some extra steps to have some, you know, whether it's food or water or shelter or whatever it is. I mean, it's good to have a warm sleeping bag in your car, let's say, in case you run out of gas and it's a cold day. Right? So it's not bad to have some preparation, some caution, some thinking about forward, as long as you're not attached to it as the thing that sustains you. Because assuming you're a believer, the thing that sustains you is God and what God provides for you. And that's why I love this verse. And that's why I love the birds and the situation that's going on in my life right now, because this verse is, if we just go like look at it little by little. So it says, look at the birds of the air. So it's like really directing our attention to these little creatures that we all see. Maybe we don't notice, like we don't tune in. It's very possible that to you the birds are background and you don't really stop and take note of them. They're just sort of passing. But it's saying, look at the birds of the air. So notice them, look at them, observe, see what's going on. Look at these birds. They neither sow nor reap. A bird doesn't have to plant, even though it does. I mean, it literally does plant seeds, right? Because it eats seeds and then it goes to the bathroom and the seeds come out. And wherever it comes out, it winds up planting something. But they're not doing that intentionally. That's just part of their nature. Right? So they're not out working to grow trees or to grow fields of grain. They're not out there growing peanuts or sunflowers or anything like that, right? They're just being birds. They're just finding what God provides and eating it. So they don't sow and they don't reap, okay? They don't go out and collect some harvest. They don't store things up. Even though there are some birds that do take, for example, some food and store it in the ground. They bury it. And they're able to know exactly where it is many months later. But if you watch birds and you know bird behavior, even if somehow, let's just say they stored that food somewhere and then a developer came along and dug the ground up so that they could build, like that bird wouldn't be devastated by that. It would just find food somewhere else. So they don't sow, they don't reap, right? They don't gather into barns, right? They don't say, okay, I need to create a place where I have enough food for my life and the life of my children, my little bird children. They just go day by day, and I can't say, I mean, I'm not in a bird's mind, right? I don't have the understanding of a bird's mind, but it doesn't appear that they're thinking about how do I ensure the life and the safety of my children. Meaning they just go out and they just provide in the moment. Their little baby birds are hungry, they go get some food and they bring it back. And if they're hungry tomorrow, they go get some food and they bring it back. But they don't gather, they don't store, they're not thinking 2 days ahead, 3 days ahead, 4 days ahead, 5 days ahead. They're just thinking now. And they're provided for. And yet your heavenly Father feeds them. So it's very clear here that they're eating because our heavenly Father feeds them. Not because trees keep growing or humans keep planting seeds or berries keep finding a way to thrive, but because our heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you, or are you not of more value than they? If you had, and so that's the thing, I don't wanna say, like, birds just trust. Birds trust that they're going to be taken care of, because I don't know that they have that mind component to say, like, "Yeah, I trust I'm going to be taken care of." I don't think that's what they're thinking. I think it's just built into their constitution. It's their habit. It's their way of being, where they believe, no, they don't believe, where they operate as if the only thing that matters is doing what they need to do right now in this moment. And then tomorrow, it's another moment, and they'll deal with that moment then. Imagine what it would be like to live your life like that. Even just for a day, if you were to go through a day and every time thoughts of storing something up, whether it be how to have a conversation, how to talk to somebody tomorrow, how to approach your boss or your employee or your employer or your neighbor or your mother or your brother, right? Your father, your sister, your son, your daughter, whoever it is, your friend. We even store things up like that. okay, I'm going to have this conversation with them tomorrow. This is how it's going to go. I'm going to do my best to do this. Like we're very future thinking, and then think about how many people like have all kinds of stores of survival food or just ways to survive, which again isn't a bad thing. It's not bad to be prepared for some things, but what's the mentality behind that? Are you like the bird who stores some seeds in the ground, but then if they go back and construction has happened and they can't access those seeds, they're okay, and they just go, oh well, I guess I'll go find some other seeds, right? Or are you devastated? Do you feel like your plans have been foiled? So what's the mental process that's happening there? Okay, so let me tie this in now to the bird feeder. So I've had this idea recently like, oh, I'm going to get a bird feeder, of course. Got to take care of the birds. It's so cold. I'm out there taking pictures. Their little legs seem so bare. It doesn't seem like there's much food. It seems like they are hiding or tucking themselves away from the wind and the elements. Like, I want to take care of them. And my first thought was that my first thought was not to get a feeder. My first thought was actually just to buy really good high quality bird seeds that will give them like real good nutrition without any of these weird things in it. Like, believe it or not, even bird seeds have sunflower oil in them. I mean, I don't know if seed oil is, right now it's sort of like the craze that seed oil is not a good thing for humans. It's hard to always say for sure. I mean, I avoid it, but it's hard to say for sure because we never really know what's going on in the body and how the body processes things. So it's always hard to know whether or not to trust these food trends as they come and go. But it does seem logical to me that having seed oils wouldn't be so healthy. Uh, that's another subject. But anyway, there's seed oils even in bird seeds. So they'll just take bird seeds, regular bird seeds, like a real literal seed, and then there's like sunflower oil in that. Why? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure for reasons other than health. Maybe it makes the seeds not stick together. Maybe it coats them so that they have a longer shelf life. I don't know. But what I mean is, I don't think they're putting that in there because it's healthy for the birds. So anyway, my idea was to get some really healthy bird seed and then just walk around with some of it in my pocket so that when I'm out taking pictures of the birds, meaning out in the wilds, I could throw them some seeds because I have a natural desire to take care of them and to make sure that they're getting some food. And I tried that. So I did that. But the thing is, birds don't have that kind of understanding. It's not like a dog. Like if you have a dog and you throw a treat for a dog, like a dog understands, it makes that connection. Like, oh, she's throwing something. Oh, look, it's a treat for me. I'm going to go eat it. Like birds out in the wild, they don't have that kind of association when they see a hand toss something out. They don't say, "Oh, maybe that's food for me. Let me go check it out." It just startles them or they move away and they don't return to that spot to check it out. So I was noticing that it was really hard to get birds in passing to understand that I was dropping seeds for them. And then the seeds, they're tiny, they're little tiny, tiny seeds. So the chance of them finding them at any point out in, the forest, out in the wetlands, it's slim. So then I thought, wow, I really understand the purpose of a feeder. It's something that stands in one spot, always has seeds in it, and over time, they can start to identify and associate food with that center, that feeder. And you know what's interesting? I'm just remembering now, I kind of forgot this part. Before I had the idea to get the feeder for myself, I was thinking about a gift for somebody. I wanted to get a gift for somebody a few months ago. And I always like to get thoughtful gifts for people, like really think about like what would be really nice for this person? Like what would they use, like what would be beneficial, useful, productive, help, I always like to find something that is like just functionally fits into their life. And this person, I know that they love birds. And so I said, "Oh, I should get a bird feeder for this person with the camera so that they can see the little birds that land and see what kind of birds are landing, and that would be really fun." And so I did some research to find what I thought would be a really great bird feeder for this person, and I got them the bird feeder. And of course, when I was doing all this research, I was like, "Wow, I want a bird feeder. I should get one for myself too." And I didn't right away. I thought, "Yeah, I will." And after I got them the bird feeder, I was so excited about them having the bird feeder and them setting up the bird feeder and hearing how that went, that I said, "Yeah, I think it's time for me to get one." So I got a bird feeder recently, just few weeks ago, and it's kind of funny how many things I had to do just to get it in the right spot, situated, hanging, because it didn't come as a hanging bird feeder. I had to do all these things. I had to take all these steps that weren't expected. And currently it's up and it's hanging. And I would say for the first 3 or 4 days, and by the way, right now it's very cold. We're in the middle of winter in New Jersey, and it's very, very cold, and it's a perfect time for feeding the birds. The first few days that it was up, no birds came to visit. And I figured they would come eventually. I didn't know how long it would take. I actually thought it wouldn't take as long as it did, but it took about maybe 3 days, 3 or 4 days. And on the 3rd or the 4th day, the first bird that came was a little song sparrow. So cute. It was so cute. And of course, it's a feeder with a camera, so I could see the sparrow. And it was just that lone sparrow that came for maybe the first couple of days. And I was surprised by how much seed it was eating. It did surprise me because there's no way it could get that much seed in the middle of winter in New Jersey, I don't think, at this time. So it was, like, surprising because it was like, "Wow, it's eating a lot." I mean, I hope it doesn't eat too much. I mean, I hope it's okay for the bird. So anyway, it kept eating, and then other birds slowly started to come. And the sparrow was a little bit, and still is a little bit, territorial, right, of the feeder. I think it kind of feels like it's feeder because it found it first. And I love that it found it first. It's like it's the bird that basically, in my mind, called in all the other birds. Because when you have one bird getting food somewhere, eventually other birds are gonna find that out and they're going to come too. So the sparrow was really like the one that called the other birds in. And there's a whole lot of birds that are there now. Like, there's a lot of birds. There's sparrows and there's finches, there's goldfinches, and there's house finches. And there's chickadees, which are my favorites. Well, they're one of my favorites. They are a favorite. There's blue jays, and there's cardinals, and there's tufted titmouse, and there's red-bellied woodpeckers, and what else? Dark-eyed juncos. What else? What else have I seen? There's a lot of birds, and it's really fun to watch them, like, really, really, really fun. And this morning, I saw something even more fun, like the most fun. I'll share that in a moment. The thing here is what I've realized, or what I believe, whether it's true or not, who knows? I won't know at this stage of the game. But I really feel like it kind of dawned on me that if I have this idea to get a feeder and to take care of the birds, I don't believe that idea came from me. I believe that idea came from God. And I believe it came from God because God, our Father, provides for the birds. And so, if our Father God provides for the birds, let's just say it's a really cold winter and there's not a lot of food. Why wouldn't He put the idea in someone's mind to get a feeder? I mean, wouldn't you do that if you were God and you wanted to take care of the birds? And I just think that's so fun. And it ties into another big piece of what I think what I've come to understand about God and about the Bible is that even when we have an interest in getting to know God, like, that doesn't come from me. I believe that comes from God. So let's just say one day you wake up and you, I don't know, all of a sudden you feel like, I wonder if I know God as much as I could. I kind of want to get to know him more. Or maybe you wake up with a desire to read the Bible. I mean, I have to do a podcast episode on that one day, but had I can't even call it a desire. I had an overwhelming knowing insight, like knowing, like there was no question. It was, I am going to read the Bible from front to back. Like I'm on a mission. Like I've been given the mission. I don't, again, I don't think that was my choosing. I don't think that was I don't think that humans, uh, without getting into too much of what I think the Bible would say about that, without, it's like me left to my own devices, right? Like, unless I'm operating through the eyes of spirit, I'm going to be operating through the eyes of flesh. And the eyes of flesh doesn't have the impulse to read the Bible. It's the spirit that stirs up a fleshly person to read the Bible. And so I think it's really interesting and fun that now I don't think that everybody, if they don't want, meaning I don't think that, I think maybe, is there somebody in the world who could decide to get a bird feeder and it's not God talking to them? Maybe. I'm not here to say one way or another whether that is the case all the time or none of the time or some of the time. I'm only sharing me and my experience. This very this experience that just happened. So very relevant, very recent experience. I believe that God put the idea in my mind to get the feeder because he takes care of the birds. And he knows which people are going to easily receive that hey, get a feeder. I love the birds. So for me it wasn't a big jump. And it feels fun to live life feeling like you're part of God's plan. And it feels fun to read Bible verses about birds because there are quite a few Bible verses about birds, especially when it comes to things like this that have both a meaning for the birds and a meaning for us, a meaning for people. Now, this communication about the birds, okay, whether it's from God or it's not from God, right? It's some communication. It's just an internal communication. Get the feeder, I get the feeder, and now all these birds are eating. And this morning I was out. I was out early. It was a little bit before 7 and I was putting some food in the feeder because I was leaving the house early and I wanted to make sure that there was plenty in there for the day. And it was still a little bit dark. The sun was not up yet. Right now the sun rises at about 7:15 and this was about 6:50 that I was outside. So it wasn't dark, but it was dark. And I went out to the feeder and I put some seeds in it. And there's a nice tree that's a couple feet away from the feeder, about 10 feet away from the feeder. And I saw 2 little tiny birds. And I knew right away, even though it was dark and I couldn't see them really well. Like I couldn't see their color, their pattern really well, but their sheer size alone and their behavior, my heart melted. I don't know if you've ever had the great special privilege of seeing a kinglet. These were ruby crowned kinglets, tiny little birds, not as small as hummingbirds, but like if you know the size of a chickadee is a pretty small bird. like way smaller than a blue jay or a cardinal. Chickadee is way small, even smaller than a dark-eyed junco, smaller than a sparrow. These are like half the size of a chickadee. They're so tiny. So I saw these 2 kinglets in the tree this morning. And the thing about kinglets is that they are not they have no fear, like, of people. They literally were 5 inches from my head, and they are so adorable. And I wasn't, I don't see kinglets often. I mean, I don't even know if I've seen plenty of them in pictures. I remember being in ornithology class and just absolutely melting even when I saw the pictures. Maybe I saw one, maybe in back then in ornithology when we were out on a field trip, but they're hard to spot because they're very, very, very tiny. And they don't necessarily frequent like where other birds do. So when I saw it this morning, I wasn't certain, like, because, hey, there could be another bird that size, or there could be another bird that looks like a kinglet that I'm not aware of that just moves through New Jersey in the month of January or whatever the case may be. But I just was like, oh, that's a king. I think there's a kinglets. You know what I mean? It was like that strong intuitive, but not, I didn't know intellectually. So I did some research later on in the day. And of course, everything, yes, points to the ruby crown kinglet. And what I learned about them is that they are drawn to they don't eat the seeds that I have in the feeder. And that was my main concern, was like, hey, if this is ruby crown kinglet, I want to make sure I have food for them too. And I don't think they're going to be eating the 2 types of seeds that I put out for the other birds, because these are tiny little birds and I don't think they'll eat those seeds that I have out. And so what I found out was that they're probably not going to eat the seeds, but they eat a lot of the insect eggs that are tucked away in tree bark and twigs and leaf litter and things like that. And just having the feeder up and attracting the other birds, the kinglets are attracted to the fact that other birds are here. And so it signifies, oh, this is a safe place. How fun is that? That those kinglets came and I got to see them both, and they were right over my head, 6 inches away from me. No fear. All because there's a bird feeder with other birds, and this is now a safe place for birds. And God always has something to teach me in everything that I do and everything that happens in life. I believe He has something to teach you in everything that happens in your life. And for me, it's a really clear connection between this verse, trusting that you will be provided for, trusting that I will be provided for. I don't have to store things up. I can keep extra stuff in the refrigerator for tomorrow. I can keep extra stuff in the refrigerator for next week. If I'm going a distance to get some food from a farm and it's a far trip, I can get extra food. It's okay to do that. But what's my mentality around it? Like, am I trusting that if something happens to that food, or if the electricity goes out and I lose that food, that I will still be provided for tomorrow, just like the birds are? And think about it like this. What if I got that message? What if I got the message from God? Get a feeder. Because those little birds needed to be cared for. What if me as a person, what if I need help? What if I need some providing for, and God puts a message on someone else's mind or heart, and they say, "Oh, I think I'm going to reach out to Gina for something. I'm going to ask her if she needs this, or I'm going to offer to do that." So, I think it's a really nice way to think about communication in terms of, like, the communications that we don't always know are communications. Like, sometimes we just have a thought or we get an idea, but maybe it's a communication from someone, from God. And on top of that, maybe you'll be provided for in ways that you don't understand. and trusting in that, having faith that you'll be provided for in ways that you don't understand, maybe that someone else will get a communication to help you when you're in need, is enough to have you feel some inspiration or some lightness in your life, in your day. Like maybe you don't have to rack your brain trying to think about how you're going to get through tomorrow if it's a tough time. Maybe you can trust that God is going to communicate with someone that's going to find you and put up a bird feeder for you. I hope this was a fun conversation for you. If you've enjoyed it or you think that there's someone in your life that would benefit from hearing it, please share it with them. If you'd like to comment or like or subscribe, all of those things will keep us connected. And if you would like to, if you've, I have journal prompts that I send out. It's a membership. It's $29 a month. It's for reflective women. Yes, if you're a man, you could certainly join. If you're a woman who's not reflective, you could certainly join. But those that are drawn to this are reflective women. Those that either are already reflective, want to be reflective, want to invite these kinds of reflections into their life. It's from these kinds of reflections that you have the thoughts, the insights, the understanding, the communication, like I just shared in this podcast today. I'll have the link to that in the show notes. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, wherever you are in the world. Maybe it's time to get a bird feeder. Or maybe someone is getting that bird feeder for you, obviously metaphorically, but like, just think about that. Maybe someone's getting a message right now that somehow helps you tomorrow. And what would it be like to go to sleep tonight trusting that? Have an awesome day. Have an awesome night. See you next time.